SMR for the posterior pelvic floor, or self-myofascial release. So essentially I'm taking this yoga tune-up ball. You don't want to use a ball that's too hard. So these are really great, maybe like a squishy ball. And essentially we're kind of getting that in kind of this area of the pelvis. So we don't want to be rolling on the bone. We want to think about kind of rolling and finding a space between kind of that sacrum and the sits bone, kind of right in that space that sometimes gets a little grippy and tight. A lot of times if we struggle to get into that left hip shift because we're more forward on that left side, we want to pull ourselves back, but we have a lot of restriction on the back side of the pelvic floor. Can really help to do a little sort of rolling, so to speak, in a passive breathing position. So doing that SMR in this case will be in a left hip shift, so we're not working so hard to hold ourselves there and push our knee forward, drag back, use the hamstrings, etc. We're going to utilize some prompts to help get us in that hip shifted position, and then use the foam ball or squishy ball to kind of roll out different parts of the back of the pelvis. So this is ultimately going to help kind of down regulate some of those external rotators, those really tight muscles that might be guarding, so that we can then facilitate a better hip shift, maybe like loading eccentrically, being able to actually lengthen through the backside. When we're thinking about glute training, a lot of times we think about knees out, banded work, a lot of external rotation at the pelvis, but we want to have access to that internal rotation so the sacrum is free to move, and that's going to be helpful for low back pain, SI pain, etc. So I'm going to take a ball. You want to make sure this Pilates ball isn't overly pumped, so it's nice and squishy. I'm going to lay on my back, and I'm going to place the ball underneath, in this case, my left butt cheek. So I'm going to kind of have it off to the side a little bit. I don't want to be like directly on it, but kind of have it out on the outside part of the butt cheek. It's going to kind of passively bring my right knee a little bit higher than my left. And I'm almost going to feel like my left side body is a little bit more connected to the ground. My feet are still even. It's just that my right is a little bit higher. You can also use a towel instead of the ball. So what that would look like is just taking kind of a rolled up towel, and you can kind of prop your right booty up, your booty cheek up a little bit, just so you're kind of propped and in that kind of little passive hip shift position. Then I'm going to take my squishy ball and I'm going to put it kind of like I said, like in this case to the left of the tailbone area. You can kind of roll it up, you can roll it down on the body, on the butt cheek area. You're going to find a spot that feels pretty tight. You're going to want to hang there. In this position, I have a slight kind of nudge forward of my right knee in front of my left. So I'm in that passive hip shifted position. I'm going to think about just breathing here, breathing those lower ribs down, keeping the sternum lifted. I'm not overly tucking at the pelvis, but I'm just thinking about breathing and kind of allowing myself to melt over that ball so I can kind of feel those muscles kind of begin to start relaxing. And I can even think about taking my left knee into more adduction or abduction, taking it out and in different directions. You might feel different parts of the muscle kind of tense up. Maybe they're tighter when you go into this adduction, or maybe they're tighter when you go out. So just thinking about finding that point of kind of restriction, and then just taking some breaths there and allowing yourself to kind of melt over the ball, so to speak. I'm going to think about inhaling and exhaling. Allowing these lower ribs to melt. I can even think about taking little tilts while the ball is there. You might feel some sensation on the backside as well. Ultimately, if we're able to kind of down regulate those muscles a little bit in this position, then maybe we can better hip shift into that hip if they're not so tense and tight. So this is just your SMR for posterior pelvic floor with a little squishy ball. Like I said, you can play around with the position. We don't want to put it on bone. Ooh, I just reached. You don't want to put this on bone. We want to just put it around on the muscle area and kind of allow ourselves to breathe in this position and allow those muscles to kind of ease in tension, so that when we do start to load and work on kind of breathing into that space, there's not so much restriction. So this can be really helpful even before you do some of your breathing work.